Good morning, class, or afternoon. I'm not sure when you're doing this, but I made a video a while ago about how to collect your data for this Elastic Energy Lab. And at the risk of giving you too much information, one of the things that I've kind of realized in this lab is that it's a challenge because what we are changing and what we are measuring are not necessarily our independent and dependent variables. And so I want to make this I want to make this video because I want to make sure that you are able to successfully fill out the procedure. And that's a really important aspect for me to see that you understand what this lab is about. So this is a video tutorial on how to identify what it was that we were changing as our independent variable, what we were measuring or calculating as our dependent variable, and then procedural questions of what we kept the same. I do need you to complete a diagram of the procedure setup and be sure to read these directions about what I want you to label. So here I have set up right here the top part of the page that you have right here. So we have two controlled variables. These two things are things that we are keeping the same every time that we run the experiment. What we want to find out is how does the stretch of a spring affect the elastic energy stored in it? Now I got that research question from the top of the page here for experiment 2. All right, so the research question is right there. How does the stretch of a spring affect the elastic energy stored in it? A good experimental procedure is going to have you change one thing, that's the stretch of the spring, and be able to measure or calculate how much elastic energy is in there. We only want the spring to stretch based off of one single thing, and that's changing the mass. So what I have here is that setup, and we have different masses that we can put on there to make the spring stretch different amounts. So we want to keep the spring the same. I have a spring here that has a K value of 15. And that's 15 newtons per meter. That's 15 newtons per meter. What that means is that for every time I stretch it 1 meter, it takes 15 newtons of force, or there's 15 newtons worth of force within the spring there. Okay, so I have the same spring that I'm using, because obviously if I change the spring, it's going to change how much it stretches. And then I'm going to have a starting height that always stays the same as well. Every time that I am changing the mass that I'm putting on there, I'm going to restart it right up here at the top of the meter stick. And of course, the meter stick is 1 meter tall. So our starting height is 1 meter. Okay, the information that you just got there is going to help you out with question 3 here of what we are keeping the same every time that we are running our experiment, every time that we are changing the mass. So that is question 3. If you're not sure, rewatch this video. Maybe rewatch it a couple of times so that you can get that information. Now, we need to change the independent variable, which is stretch, and we want to get a range of data. We want to get a range of different stretches. How are we going to do that? Well, we can change the amount of mass that we're putting on there because as it gets heavier, it's going to make it stretch out further. Okay, so I will go ahead and run two different masses so that we can see that, and then we'll be able to go on with that. So watch what I'm doing, and what I'm looking for you to do is to put what I'm doing in action, in words on your paper. Okay, so you are going to take what I'm doing right here, and you're going to put it into words on your paper for question 1. Okay, so what I have here is I have a starting height of 1 meter, and I'm going to release it and watch the furthest bounce that it does. Okay. I think it goes to 95 centimeters there. So I would record 0.9. Okay. Now I want to make it stretch further. I'm going to add some more mass to that. So I'm adding another 50 grams, and I think it went down to 80. Let's see. Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay. So what I did, right, I hope that you can see how I made it stretch to different lengths. That is my independent variable. I wanted to stretch the spring out to different lengths, so I did that. Okay. Now, for question 2, how did you measure or calculate the dependent variable? This is the tricky part. A lot of the labs that I have already read are saying that the ending height is the dependent variable. It's not, right? What we want to find out is how does the energy depend on the stretch in the spring? So elastic energy, as it says right there, elastic energy is the dependent variable. Okay, so now what the question's asking is how did we measure or calculate the elastic energy? Could I see elastic energy in this? I can't, right? Could I hear elastic energy? I can't, right? It's not something that is visible or auditory. It's just this kind of entity about the spring that is basically how much that spring wants to bounce back into its original position. So it's not something I can measure. It's something I need to calculate. After you have completed all of this data right here, you would then take that into your online spreadsheet. And I printed out that copy of the spreadsheet. Okay, so you would be plugging in your mass, be plugging in your starting height, right? Is that changing? No, right? That's one of those controlled variables. You'd be plugging in the ending heights that you got, right? That's what you recorded. And then you're clicking on this and it shows you how to code this spreadsheet. All right, so let's say that you've done all of that. There's already a video on Canvas to help you out with that. So I'm going to assume that you have already coded this spreadsheet. What I care about here is the elastic energy, right? How did you get the elastic energy? The way that I would go about doing this is thinking about, okay, it's a calculation. Click on the cell and see how it relates to the other work that you put in. You want to tell me what formula or what mathematical model or what equation, I know we've been kind of throwing around all those words, but basically what calculation it took to get the elastic energy. So you have to go to your spreadsheet, you have to click on the elastic energy cell, and then that'll tell you like what the cells were that you added or subtracted or multiplied in order to get elastic energy. Please be sure to describe that for question 2 in all words. Okay, so I want to know in words what was the calculation that you had to do to find elastic energy. Okay, of course, and then the last thing that you'll do is you'll make your procedure diagram. It should look, something like this, and it should be labeled to tell me all the things that you have on here. I hope that this clarifies what you need to do for the procedure part, and that'll help you to have a little more success with this lab. Thank you.